Hello, this will be a demonstration of proposition 13 from book 3 of Euclid's Elements, which states that a circle does not touch another circle at more than one point, either internally or externally. We saw in the previous two propositions this difference of touching internally or externally, and so this proposition will tackle both cases and show that circles do not touch each other at more than one point in either case. So we begin by having the circle ABC touching EBF internally, and the circle ABCD touching the circle AKL externally. And what we have set out to prove is that the circle ABCD does not touch the circle EBF or the circle AKL at more than one point. This being a proposition where we have to prove two things. Euclid divides the proposition into effectively two, tackling the internal case first and the external case second. So I will begin by demonstrating that the circle ABCD does not touch the circle EBF at more than one point. Or if this is not the case, then it touches it at more than one point. And so we'll let this be the case. We'll have the circle ABCD, and we'll have the circle EBF have to look something like that, touching the circle ABC at more than one point. We'll have A here, B here. And in this case, we'll have the circle EBF touch the circle ABC internally at 2 points, namely point B and point F. Now, if we take the center of both of these circles, ABCD and EBFD, we can do this by proposition 3.1. If we take their centers, then we know that the straight line joining them will fall on the points of tangency. We know this from proposition 3.11. And so the straight line GH, where G is the center of ABCD, and H is the center of EBFD, the straight line joining those 2 points, GH, must fall on the points B and D, those being the points of tangency. And so let's create the straight line BGHD. Like so. Oh, I have 2 F's. My bad. That's a problem with being a mathematician. You lose track of your alphabet. Okay, we can do that by postulate 1. Now, we know that BG must be equal to GD by definition 115, the radii of the same circle. Excuse me. And GD being the hole in which the straight line HD is contained, we know that GD must be greater than HD. So by a property of magnitudes, we can say that BG is also greater than HD. And if we add GH to one side, the inequality remains, and that it will still be greater. And so if we have BG plus GH, and that is the straight line BH, right? We have BG plus GH plus BH. We know that BH is then also greater than HD. That's another property of magnitudes. And so we know that BH is greater than HD, but we also know by definition 115, the radii of the same circle coming from the center, point H, and so we know that BH must also be equal to HD. So we see that BH must be simultaneously greater than and equal to HD, which is absurd. And so we can say that the circle ABCD does not touch the circle EBF internally at more than one point. Now let's move on to the second case where the two circles touch each other externally. And we shall prove that the circle ABCD does not touch the circle AKL externally at more than one point. For if this is not the case, then they touch each other at more than one point. And we will call these points of tangency A and C. And it would have to be something like this, KL. So we have the circle AKL touching the circle ABCD at the 2 points A and C, like so. Next, we join the straight line AC. Do that by postulate 1. Now we know that AC falls within the circle ABCD by proposition 3.2, that if 2 points on the circumference of a circle be taken at random, then the straight line joining them must fall within the circle. So we can say that the straight line AC falls within the circle ABCD. For the same reason also, we know that the straight line AC must also fall within the circle ACK, again by proposition 3.2. But by definition 3.3, we know that the two by the given, we know that the two circles are touching each other. And what it means for two circles to touch one another is that they do not cut each other. But what happens if we have a straight line falling within two circles simultaneously, then the circles cannot be touching one another. So if we have this sort of setup, and we have a straight line falling within two circles at the same time, then the two circles cannot be touching one another. And so we see that the straight line AC must fall within both the circles ABCD and ACK, but the straight line AC must simultaneously also not fall within both circles ABCD and ACK, and this being absurd, we know that the circle ABC does not touch the circle ACK at more than 1 point externally, and so we have finished what we set out to prove. We have shown that the circle ABCD does not touch the circle EBF internally at more than 1 point, nor does it touch the circle AKL at more than 1 point externally, and this being what we set out to prove, we are done with the proposition. Therefore, etc. QED. Nothing to say about this proposition, so I shall move on simply to proposition 3.14.